Coming up on Talking Points, President Biden pardoning all federal offenses of marijuana possession. We'll break down how many people this will affect in just a few moments.
And North Korea continues testing its nuclear arsenal. We'll have more on the motives behind the drills and how it could involve America.
Plus, at home and around the nation, we're less than a month away from election night. We've got the latest polls in the uber-competitive New York 22 race. Talking Points starts right now.
Welcome into this edition of Talking Points. I'm Teagan Brown.
And I'm Chilekasi, Adele. Lots of stuff to get to tonight, but let's start with President Biden's nuclear warning during a speech at a fundraiser last Thursday.
This warning has raised eyebrows across the globe and has some questioning whether Biden pushed the bounds of U.S. intelligence with this remark. Talking Points analyst Jake Morel is in studio with more on what this means for the U.S. and Russian relations. Jake?
Teagan, Chile, good evening. Last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin gave a speech regarding the state of the conflict in Ukraine where he said, quote, he would use all forces and means to acquire the territories that he wants. This speech is what prompted Biden's remarks on Thursday, where he said, for the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have a threat of a nuclear weapon if, in fact, things keep going down the path that they're going. Now, President Biden is known to be more candid at his fundraisers, especially when off camera like he was at this one. But this quote drew international attention, and rightfully so. Not only did the leader of the free world warn us about nuclear war, but he did so seemingly without contacting security officials first. Since this speech, several Pentagon officials have come out and said that there has been no further indication in the past few days that Putin is going to use nuclear weapons. And now many are accusing Biden of stretching the bounds of U.S. intelligence, but some disagree, saying that the warning is warranted. So let's take a look at the facts. Putin's army has stalled in their invasion of Ukraine, and recent reports out of the country say that Russian soldiers have retreated so quickly that they've left their deceased in the streets. Putin recently authorized even more military forces, including missile strikes today, for another invasion of restricted Ukrainian territories in which he's already struggling in acquiring. And after his speech last week, he clearly has world leaders worrying that he could escalate his strategy to the use of nuclear or biological weapons. So there may not be specific intel that U.S. officials have that Putin is ready to do that, but Biden is calling for the signs not to be ignored regardless.
Jake, if there was no updated information or confirmation about Putin planning to use nuclear weapons immediately before this speech, why was Biden making such vivid statements here?
Chile, Biden is making these statements because he's trying to convey the gravity of the situation to the rest of the world. He's using words like Armageddon, and that word coming out of the mouth of any world leader is a big deal, but especially coming out of the mouth of the President of the United States. He's trying to convey that the whole world should take Putin's threat very seriously. And also what he's doing is he's sending a message to Putin, and he's saying that the U.S. will not stand for them using nuclear weapons and that they will retaliate, and that him as the leader of the free world will put a stop to Putin using something like that against Ukraine.
And Jake, President Biden has met these recent signs with a strong response, but how are other world leaders reacting to Putin's actions?
So European leaders are also taking this threat very, very seriously, but they're a little bit more calm about it compared to Biden, despite their proximity to the conflict. At an EU conference last week in Prague, French President Emmanuel Macron said, "I've always refused to engage in political fiction, and especially when speaking of nuclear weapons. On this issue, we must be very careful." And European Council President Charles Michel gave similar remarks, saying that they must remain calm. So we're seeing an interesting contrast between European leaders and between Biden in that they're both taking it very seriously, but the European leaders are actually a little bit more calm about it, despite being closer to the conflict than we are here in the United States.
Talking Points analyst Jake Morel, thank you. Moving home now, New York Republican gubernatorial nominee Lee Zeldins says a shooting took place outside of his family's home in Shirley, New York last night. He added that his family was unharmed, but 2 victims were shot underneath his front porch.
Zeldin, who is a U.S. congressman, has made crime a big talking point of his gubernatorial race. In a statement released last night, he said, "Like so many New Yorkers, crime has literally made its way to our front door. My family is grateful to all who have reached out, and we will provide another update when we can."
And Zeldins' opponent, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, also commented on the shooting. She said, quote, "As we await more details, I'm relieved to hear the Zeldin family is safe and grateful for law enforcement's quick response."
And on the West Coast, the Los Angeles City Council President Nury Martinez resigned earlier today. The resignation comes as Martinez and 3 other council members took place in a discussion containing anti-black and anti-indigenous speech.
California NAACP President Rick Callender said, "We clearly know where your heart and mind are, and both of them are corroded with the rust of racism and hate." At this time, Martinez is the only council member to resign.
And sticking with national news, President Biden announced Thursday that he is pardoning all federal charges for marijuana possession. Biden asked Attorney General Merrick Garland to review the way marijuana is categorized federally.
Biden hopes these pardons will provide better opportunities to those convicted from the 1970s to today. Talking Points analyst Ericka Love is here to tell us more on how this could impact the lives of Americans. Ericka, thanks for joining us. What are the next steps here in the pardoning process? And how do we expect these to influence some of the decisions on the state level as well?
Yeah, so Biden's biggest priority is addressing these simple possessions. You know, so many people in America have been convicted over charges related to marijuana. He's working with the Justice Department to not only change the categorization so that it's not under the same topic as heroin or LSD, which will affect the difficulty of the penalties or what can involve with people serving time, but his idea is that he's trying to fulfill his goals that he set on his campaign trail.
And Ericka, this is coming a month before midterm elections. What is Biden hoping happens with this decision?
Yeah, so over 40,000 people have been affected by marijuana-related convictions. This will help so many people in the Black and brown communities. But Biden, you know, when he was a senator, he completely had control over a lot of mass incarceration bills. He's trying to turn that back over to the states to make the right decision to make up for things that he said that he couldn't do as a senator. And by doing that, he's helping a lot of people.
Ericka, some Republicans, like Texas Governor Greg Abbott, he plans not to follow through on this from Biden here. How could a decision like this affect the lives of Americans in other states?
Well, ultimately, President Biden is asking many governors to follow his lead, but also simply to understand that these convictions can directly affect someone trying to get a job, to go into housing, to apply for college. So he's trying to broaden the aspect of that, but I also think that he's just trying to energize Democratic supporters in these midterms to show up and vote for candidates who will reverse bills like this.
And it's possible that those on the more progressive wing in the Democratic Party do show up after this decision. Talking Points analyst Ericka Love, thank you. Coming up on Talking Points, Russia fires a new series of attacks on Ukraine this morning. Which major Ukrainian city was hit by airstrikes? When Talking Points returns.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Boom. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Boom. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Tensions continue to escalate between Russia and Ukraine. Earlier this morning, Russian airstrikes targeted the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv and other cities.
This comes after a bridge exploded, which connects Russia to annexed Ukrainian territory in Crimea. Here to break down the latest moves by President Putin to escalate conflict with Ukraine is Talking Points analyst Dominic Chiappone. Dominic.
Thanks, Chile and Teagan. Obviously, a lot has broken down in the past 24 hours with the conflict between both Russia and Ukraine. First off, let's start off by establishing the context of the map of the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You can see on that eastern side an invasion through the Crimean side, on the southern side, directly westward from the mainland Russia, and then down below heading toward Kyiv. You could see here, as in the past 2 months, the shift in the battlefront here. You could see Ukrainian advances in the area of Kyiv, securing that, and more movements down this way as Russian forces have pushed back. Ukraine has recaptured more square miles in September and October than Russia did in the previous 7 months of the invasion. So a lot is at play here. However, what we do need to look at, though, is some of the developments in the past couple months. For instance, today, a couple of days ago, a huge bridge explosion took place in Crimea. This is an area where Ukraine has attempted to take back that territory and Russia has annexed it. This has led to a retaliation effort led by President Putin, where bombings took place across both Kyiv and 10 different Ukrainian cities. We've also seen a partial mobilization of Russian soldiers as well. President Zelensky has commented on the recent developments here, and you kind of see that response over here. Generally, President Zelensky has had a relatively one message when it comes to addressing the world and addressing everybody else about this situation. Here's what he had to say to the United Nations recently.
Dear Mr. President of the General Assembly, dear Secretary General of the United Nations, dear heads of states and governments, dear journalists, nations of the world, Ukraine wants peace. Europe wants peace. The world wants peace.
So you can see in that speech, peace is the absolute message. And now the real question becomes, what's next between both Ukraine and Russia? As you can see on the screen, lots of developments. For instance, Russia has annexed multiple territories that have been contested, especially given the recent Ukrainian counteroffensive. There have been over 1,000 arrested in Russia because of protests over anti-war movements in the area. But of course, the Ukraine counteroffensive and the death toll rising for both sides. This is a very difficult situation, and this is one that we will certainly have to watch out for over the next couple months. But that's all I have. Teagan and Chile, back to you guys.
Dominic Chiappone, thank you so much. Staying overseas, North Korea is testing its nuclear arsenal. The North Korea state-run media said today that the drills were a tactical nuclear drill to simulate hitting its southern neighbor. Since the test, the United States, Japan, and South Korea have been ramping up military exercises in the region. So Chilekasi, as I said, these state media organizations are saying that this is the start of going at South Korea.
Yeah, and this is something to watch here in terms of South Korea and North Korea as well, how the U.S. is involved. I think one of the things that's interesting that I picked up on earlier today is that experts say, there's experts in The Guardian that said today that Kim Jong-un is trying to avoid any overt action that will kind of take away the spotlight from China at this moment. And why? Because China and the Communist Party of China is having their Congress. Basically, people go there and they try and make sure that Xi Jinping is reinstated as China's president for a third term. It would be Maoist in terms of how long he's been there in power in China. So that's something to watch as well, the China front of this whole situation.
Yeah, and that Communist Party Congress is taking place in 6 days in China. So it'll be interesting to see, even leading up to that, how this changes in the media in North Korea. But we're actually seeing South Korea kind of, in a way, trying to respond to this. They're resuming large-scale naval drills. So we're going to see basically how each of these is continuing in the future with these drills, to see if there is any potential conflict that could happen between these two.
And as we saw with the war in Ukraine too, that Dominic Chiappone was just talking about there, I think the continuation of how we're going to see these alliances form is going to be something to watch, because you're not only seeing China, but you're seeing Russia, you're seeing North Korea. Maybe you start to see more of a bond and more of a resource sharing between those three nations. And of course, you've got America, South Korea, countries like India, Australia, and the European Union as well.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on what happens, and we'll keep you updated right here on Talking Points.
Yes. Moving to the Middle East, where protests in Iran continue to ramp up. Just yesterday, the Iranian state-run TV was hacked by protesters and replaced with an image of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on fire. The hacking comes after over 180 people have been killed by security forces following the death of an Iranian woman in police custody. Teagan, of course, this is something that's not only taking Iran by storm, but the world as well.
Yeah, we're actually seeing here in the U.S., unlike when we talked about this last week, there wasn't really a response from colleges or young people in the U.S., but now we are seeing this. We're seeing protests in Orange County, California, at Boston's Harvard Bridge. So this really is starting to spread. And something I was looking at earlier, there were protests at an oil refinery in Iran, and here's some of the chants that were chanted today. Shameless, death to the dictator. Also, this is the bloody year Sayyid Ali will be overthrown, referring to the supreme leader Ali Khamenei. So a lot of movement going on in Iran. We're seeing people from all ages, from the very young to the very old, gathering in the streets, making a protest over what they see as what they want as regime change. Yeah, we even saw Iranian students here at Syracuse University protesting last week, and they've been spreading their message on social media ever since. So we will also have to keep an eye on that. But right now, for coming up on Talking Points, we have the first poll in New York's 22nd congressional race is out. Which candidate has a 5-point lead? This and more after the break. I don't know what happened there. Welcome back to Talking Points. Herschel Walker, the Republican nominee for Georgia's Senate seat, is dealing with a new series of scandals. The Daily Beast reported last week that Walker allegedly paid for a woman to have an abortion. The woman says she ended her relationship with Walker after he offered to pay for a second. Talking Points analyst Noah Gutfleisch is here to break down where Walker stands in the polls today amid this controversy. Noah, thank you and welcome. This is your first time on Talking Points. This isn't the first time Walker's campaign has had to deal with controversy. How are they responding this time around?
So at first, this first broke last Monday. The Daily Beast showed it, and he denied it. He went actually on Fox News that night and with Sean Hannity and kept on saying, "No, I don't know this woman. No, this did not happen." And it really did not get any better for his campaign from there. A couple days later, it was revealed that he did know the woman actually, and that he actually had a child with the woman. So, and a few days after that, then it was revealed that he had texted the child multiple times and the woman, and he had seen the kid since like 2016, which is a very long time. And they wanted to see each other for many more times, but that just never happened. And also there's other controversies such as Christian Walker, his son, talking about how he was kind of absent during his childhood.
So it appears Democratic nominee and current Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock is having an increased lead in the polls. Where do those polls stand now?
So the latest poll from Insider Advantage, which is a bit Republican, which is a bit more favorable to Republicans, has him up by 3 points. That was taken the day after this was released. And also polls in the past month have shown that Warnock has typically been leading. I don't think that Walker's won one poll in the past month. So even before this, the Walker campaign was having a little trouble with the polling.
So we're a month out, a little less than a month out towards Election Day. We know that former President Donald Trump has been a huge supporter of Herschel Walker. How has he responded to criticism of his endorsement of Walker?
Well, he has he hasn't really said too much about it. He stood by Walker thoroughly before the primary and cleared the field really for him. Like there are many other Republicans who could have ran, such as former Senator Kelly Loeffler and former Representative Doug Collins, but he cleared the field, and it seems like Republicans are standing by Walker. That he actually had his biggest fundraising day actually that day after that came out, and Mitch McConnell has said that they are not giving up on him. They're doubling down.
One of the big races to watch as we head towards Election Day here. Noah, thank you so much. Over to Teagan at the wall.
And moving over to local races coming down to the wire. One of those includes New York's 22nd district, which SU falls under. Talking Points analyst Peter Barry, who's making his Talking Points debut, joins us now to give us a picture of where this race stands as we speak. Now, Peter, the latest poll numbers have come out for Brandon Williams, Francis Knoll. What are they looking like?
Yes, according to a Siena College poll, Brandon Williams leads by 5 points against Francis Knoll. But many polls have not been conducted yet for this particular race. Both of them have military experience, and Francis Knoll is a Syracuse local, so he could possibly have this on lockdown for Syracuse.
How are both Williams and Knoll's campaigns reacting to these latest polls?
Both their campaigns have been producing a lot of attack ads. Francis Knoll, AuburnPub.com, said Francis Knoll had a $1.1 million fundraiser, which is one of the highest in Syracuse history. And the district is mainly white, so both their campaigns are targeting primarily white people.
A lot of these, campaigns that we've seen in commercials have also been on social media. I know that they've been popping up on Instagram and Twitter lately, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But let's look a little bit further at what exactly is going to influence voters for putting their vote in for these people. So what are the biggest factors in this race?
Well, the district just was redrawn after several times, so now it's the 22nd district instead of the 24th. Another big factor will be inflation and the economy. The inflation is going up, the economy is not doing so great, and Williams is Trump-aligned, and Knoll is backed by Governor Kathy Hochul.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this race plays out. Talking Points analyst Peter Barry, thank you so much. And coming up on Talking Points, Chilekasi and I have our picks of the biggest upsets in the upcoming 2022 midterm elections. Mine, for sure, will be a surprise. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Points. We're just 4 weeks away from election night here in America. Teagan and I have our picks for races we could see being an upset or storyline on November 8th. Ericka Love and Jake Morel rejoin us here at the desk. Guys, I'll start here. This Pennsylvania Senate race between Dr. Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman, I think Oz is going to pull away here.
Really, I think I'm going to go the opposite of you. I'm going to say Fetterman is going to take this one. I really don't think Oz has the gumption. I don't think he has the votes. I don't think he has the support that he should have had throughout this entire campaign in order to pull away with this.
I think the interesting part here to notice in this race is that I think a lot of people are going to break for Josh Shapiro in the governor's race, but they're going to break back over for Oz. You're talking about suburbanites outside of Philly, Pittsburgh. I think a lot of them feel comfortable voting for Shapiro in the governor's race. They probably think that Doug Mastriano, the Republican nominee, is a little bit too far right, but I think they're going to break for Oz.
Well, I think that's our election that we're going to talk about. But Jake, your home state, let's talk about you.
So I've got one in my home state, an upset that I'm predicting. It's the Illinois 17th House District. Now, this district has been blue since 2013, but the current representative, Cherry Bustos, is retiring after this year. And this district also went red for Trump in 2016 and in 2020. And it's a very interesting race if you look at it. The Democrat, his name is Eric Sorensen, he's running on a platform of science as a former meteorologist at the local NBC station there, and the Republican is actually running as, you know, a very conservative Trump-like Republican. But I actually think that this district is going to go red for the first time in 10 years, and I think that that's going to be my upset. And that's actually probably going to be the closest district to go red to Chicago.
Interesting points there. Ericka, you've got a governor's race going on in Georgia.
Yeah, so Governor Brian Kemp with Stacey Abrams, a similar situation with these like large suburban communities coming out and showing up in numbers. The biggest concern for Stacey Abrams this year is that she does get that vote in these suburban counties. And then same situation with Brian Kemp. He's using Trump-related strategies, and he has been backed by former President Trump. And so we're going to see a lot of changes. They're really close, and so it's really going to come out really close when we get to the midterms.
And it's a test of if you can survive, right? Brian Kemp obviously was one of the first people to face the challenge of having to deal with the stuff in the midst of the 2020 election with the election denial and the results. And for the most part, it seems as if he's gotten to the point where he's been a nominee now. So the question is, can he actually win on election day?
Well, let's jump from Georgia to Arizona. Now, there are two elections here that we, discussed before the show that we could talk about. We have the governor's race and we have the Senate race. So what are you guys thinking so far about those?
You know, it's really tough talking about the governor's race or the Senate race, because I think the governor's race, it could break either way. Arizona has an influx of people who are more liberal coming into the state, but there are also a lot of retirees who tend to lean more conservative, although some of them are turning more Democrat. I think that's what we saw in the Mark Kelly race for Senate a couple years back. So it's going to be interesting to see.
I really think that the Republican is going to take the win in that one. I truly do. Like you said, we have a large amount of retirees going to the state, and I really think that's going to make a difference. Jake, what do you think?
I think I agree with Chile here. I think it's going to go blue in both races. I mean, we saw Arizona with plenty of election denial, election fraud drama in 2020, and I think that maybe a lot of the conservatives there are tired of being a Republican and tired of seeing that all that drama surrounding their state. And I don't think they want that anymore. I think that'll push enough people blue, and I think that Democrats will win both of these races.
Honestly, I'm with you, Teagan. I'm thinking it's going to go red. I think mostly because a lot of the conservative community is being more outspoken on their anti-abortion rights, and I think that'll sway the vote a lot more than most people will think for Arizona.
Well, we're going to have an entire election special on November 8th, 3 hours long. Tune in Monday night, 3 hours. It's going to be a great election special, right, Chile?
It'll be a fun one for sure. I'm not sure if I'm going to get that much sleep the night before or the day after, but hey, we'll be here, so we hope you join us.
Well, that'll do it for this edition of Talking Points. To keep up with us and that election special, be sure to follow us on Twitter at CitrusTV News. I'm Teagan Brown.
And I'm Chilekasi, Adele. We're back next week. Same time, same place. Until then, good night.